Welcome to the High Vibration Reset. My guest this week is Yvonne Doyle, ex-professional tennis player, former Irish number one, who has represented Ireland over 80 times. Now, because meditation had such a profound impact on her career, she now helps athletes, mostly tennis players, strengthen their mental game, their confidence and resilience by using meditation, mindfulness, and other mental performance tools. Yvonne is also a certified yoga and meditation teacher. Now, please note, this conversation is not just for tennis players, but if you are a tennis player, your opponents better watch out, because the advice in this episode is invaluable. Advice about mental strength, self-awareness, and understanding how to reset after a setback. But before we begin, if you've been enjoying the podcast, please hit the follow button. It takes just a second and really supports the show more than you might realize. So let's get into the episode. Yvonne, thank you so much for joining me on the High Vibration Reset.
Oh, thank you so much, Ciara. Lovely to be here. Really looking forward to the chat.
You're looking forward to the chat. Well, I'm really looking forward to the chat. And not using this in any way to better my own performance on the tennis court. No.
Well, I might throw a few tips in there along the way.
Brilliant. So, Yvonne, you've played at the highest levels of sport. So, first of all, I want to ask you, what have you learned from being a high performance athlete that has helped you really in life since performance?
Yeah. So, I suppose, just reflecting back on my playing days and my whole career, there's so much I've learned from, when I was 10 years old all the way up to, when I stopped playing, maybe just before my 30th birthday. But I suppose I'll just, put it into a few different categories. The first one really is how discipline and, good quality practice and hard work pays off. I'll just tell you a little story, a real quick story. So when I was about 10 years old, so it was the mid 80s, and nowadays tennis is more year round, but back in the day, you played tennis in the summer and then there weren't that many tournaments throughout the rest of the year. And my tennis club was empty in autumn and winter time, so I didn't really have, it was kind of in the afternoons after school. I didn't really have many people to play with, but I knew that I could go up and practice my serve. So what I used to do, I'd come home from school and run up to the tennis, get changed, have something to eat, and then go up to the tennis club with my racket. And I had just 2 balls in my hand. And I did this for, a whole season, just, hitting 2 serves, running around the other side, picking up the balls, hitting 2 serves. And I did it for maybe 45 minutes to an hour. And that was my little practice. I had done something for my tennis. Probably that was where I first kind of started to experiment with visualization as well, because it was, I was kind of aiming the ball a certain spot, and I say, almost like I'd talk to the ball, try and go that position, and it would, and, sometimes it worked, and it was, that was a little introduction to visualization. But just moving on then, about a year later, I am in the final of the national championships, we call them. They're held in Fitzwilliam at the end of every summer. And I wasn't seeded in this event, and I got to the final, and I ended up in the final hitting, somebody told me it was 13 aces, and I remember this person saying, you hit 13 aces there. And I was like, oh, did I? Yeah, I thought my serve was good. But, I was a little 11-year-old, not really. Yeah, I wasn't really like aware of what was going on. But, and they said then, when you used to go up, like last year, you went up to the club so many times practicing your serve, and that's what has paid off here, and that's what helped you hit so many aces in your match. So I was like, oh yeah, and I kind of then put two and two together. Yeah, practice, and but for me, the practice was very enjoyable, and it was just a sense of satisfaction. I got something out of it. So that was it, the discipline, the good practice, putting in the work pays off. I had a coach, my first coach actually, Shay Feely, and he had said to me, if you want to be a good tennis player, you got to have good footwork, and if you want to have good footwork, you can skip. And I was like, oh, I can do that. I've got a skipping rope at home, So, and there was space in my kitchen. So I started skipping in the evenings after dinner, after everything was cleared away. My siblings were gone off to study or do their homework, and I had the kitchen space to myself. And I take out my skipping rope, and then I worked my way up to doing 1,000 skips a night, over time, just working up to 1,000 skips a night. And then I kept going. I was like, I am doing 1,000 skips. This is my number now. I have to do 1,000 skips every night. And I did it for years. And, my idea was to have good footwork. I used to love Steffi Graf. So this is, for sports people, having somebody that you aspire to be like, and Steffi Graf, some of your listeners might remember Steffi Graf. She had amazing footwork, and I wanted to be like her. So, so I did the skipping, and I did have good footwork. I could feel it on court, and continued on doing that all the way up to professional tennis, or, when I was playing professionally. So that was great. Discipline and quality practice, really, really important, and something that has just stayed with me, I suppose, now in my work life, and just looking after myself as well, looking after my body and my mind. And then I'll just tell you, there's just a few other things. So the goal setting. I did start quite early on. I know, Ciara, you'd be into goal setting, I think, as well. I've heard you say it a few times on your podcast. So just goal setting. I would have started quite young doing my setting little goals for myself, and kind of, just my dream goals. And then over time, I figured out, better ways of goal setting. But just knowing that by writing stuff down, this really helps. First of all, because you have to take the time to write down your goals. So you have to reflect a bit and kind of understand what it is that you really want, and then figuring out ways to achieve those goals,
So Yvonne, at this stage, were those goals, like you were at a 10, 11-year-old, were you aspiring to be at Wimbledon at that age, or were you just looking to, beat your opponents in your local tennis club? What was in your mind back then?
I think I only started to kind of think, oh, I want to be a professional tennis player. I want to play in Wimbledon. That probably started happening a little later on, maybe like 13, 14. And then, all the way up. Yeah, definitely just and I always say to people, like definitely kids, when we'll be doing goal setting, I work with players. When we're doing goal setting, I'd say, what's your dream goal? And forget about like what other people might think, or even if you don't think it's attainable, just write down your dream goal, because if we don't write it down, then we know we're not going to put any energy towards that. But I think if we write it down and then, think about it, we certainly can help ourselves get it, move in that direction. The goal setting.
Allow ourselves to dream is what you're saying there. Just allow yourself without the limits for a moment.
Exactly. Yeah. Why not? Why not you, And actually, I do that now myself, just thinking about, kind of my business that I've started to build up, and thinking about, I'll go to tennis clubs and do some workshops. And I'm like, oh gosh, initially, not having the confidence, not having the belief in myself. And then, but just knowing that, oh, that would be something I'd love to do because I feel, people could benefit from what I have to say, what I have to share. And then, so I had written it down, but just kind of going, yikes, I don't want to go there. But in time, it just evolved because of all the other little things that I did to help me get enough confidence and kind of feel organized and prepared to go and deliver those workshops. So that's, a big part of what I do now as well. So yeah, just seeing the involvement.
Yeah. And that's how I came across you. It was probably somebody in my tennis club that liked some of your Instagram posts, which led me to start following you on Instagram. If you are interested in sport or tennis, mental strength. Is it mental
For
strength for
tennis.
tennis? Yeah, it's her
That's it. Yeah.
Instagram. And I started to follow you, and then I invited you to my tennis club to put on a session, which was very well received, and it was about mental strength. So let's just go there for a moment, Yvonne, in terms of that mental strength for tennis, mental strength for getting up in the morning, mental strength for getting on with our lives is such an important piece. But that evolution, let's say, so when you were a child tennis player, you were disciplined and practiced, but it was fun. You were driven, let's say, by that desire and joy that you had for tennis. So as it got further on and got more difficult in your career, when did that aspect of, it mightn't have been called mental strength then, but when did you first notice that need for really taking control of your mind?
Yeah, I'll just share with you actually, Ciara, that I was as a junior tennis player, so I had success as a junior, but I was so emotional on court. When I was competing, when I was playing, I used to love the practices and the training and pushing my body and all that sort of stuff. But I really struggled with the mental side of things. I used to cry on the tennis court, actually. I used to get so overwhelmed. Now, some of your listeners might play tennis or might go to junior tournaments, and some of the kids cry on court, and I know exactly what they're going through. It was not having the ability to manage my emotions. I didn't have that tool. I didn't have that skill. And really, it wasn't talked about. It was just like, try not to get upset on court, Yvonne. Try, it doesn't matter. Or saying to me, though, it doesn't matter was like, that was the worst thing you could say, because I was like, it does matter. I was very competitive, but very emotional. I really, going through my junior days, all the way up until under 18, I did struggle, and beyond. But I'll just tell you, there was a few little scenarios or kind of times when I really kind of thought, oh, there is such a thing as being able to train your mind. So when I was about 15, I was on this national squad, and we had a sports psychologist come in and do some sessions with us. So this is my first introduction to this kind of thing. The late Dr. Aidan Moran, he was a professor of psychology at UCD. Everything he said, I was just eating it up. I was just like, oh my goodness, I can't believe you can actually do something about, feeling nervous on court, or, your concentration slipping away, or you can do things to help your confidence, So, and in those sessions, there was one session in particular where he took us through a little, he just dimmed the lights, and we all just sat there, and we did a little meditation practice. It was a little, focusing on your breath. And again, this is my first introduction to this kind of thing. And I was loving it, but some of the other kids, they were all giggling and laughing and like, which is quite natural, at that age. It was fine. But I really wanted to kind of, actually as well, I have his notes still. So this is over 30 years ago and I still have Aidan Moran's notes.
Wow.
But so I took some of the stuff that he was saying, and tried and practiced it. And then I had a coach, Ronan Reid, he was kind of like my mentor. He ended up sponsoring me when I was playing full time as well. And he loved tennis and he kind of took me under his wing and used to practice with me and help me with the mental side of things, trying to get me into a good mental place. But he used to talk about, Yvonne, you're so tough. You eat nails and bricks for breakfast, And I was like, yeah, that's what I do. And then there was this other little visualization he taught me, which I thought was brilliant. I'd be going out to play a match and maybe we'd be just sitting before the match. And he goes, can you feel the fire in your belly? This, all the adrenaline and just this excitement to play, but the nerves as well. And I was like, yeah, I can feel it. I really want to go out and play now. And he says, now I want you to calm that down. Imagining you're pouring a little bit of water over the fire, And he's like, I want you to use your breathing to imagine you're doing that. And I'd be like, breathing out, exhaling. So it was kind of trying to find that balance of being fired up to play, but at the same time having the control, having control of yourself. There was a rugby commentator last year, maybe when the rugby matches were on, and I remember just going, oh, I love that comment. He was saying, you want the players to be like your heart is on fire, but your head is in the fridge. So I thought that was really
Very
good.
good.
I was like, oh yeah, nice and cool and calm in the
Cool and
head, but
calm.
playing with intensity and passion, that kind of thing. But so I left Ireland then after finishing, under 18 tennis, junior tennis was finished, and I went to college in America. Went to the University of San Diego on a tennis scholarship. And when I was there, it was maybe my I think it was my third year. And this is when things all started to shift for me from the mental side of tennis, So, I was never really sure what version of myself was going to show up when I'd go and compete, I'd go and perform. Some days were good, some days were bad. And I never really knew why. Still didn't have full kind of management of my head, my mental game. And there was a particular period then when I went through a tough period where I've lost one of my shots, as in I couldn't hit. I got what they call the yips. You have that in shots sometimes. Sometimes people get it on the serve in tennis. Sometimes golfers get it, just putting, where it's just a simple shot that you would do over and over again in practice. You're able to do it, no problem. But then when it comes to competition or needing to perform, and it falls apart because of whatever pressure you're feeling. I think I was putting a lot of pressure on myself for trying to get a position on the team. When I was playing the college tennis, I wanted to be playing number one on the team and it wasn't happening. And anyway, it was probably, in hindsight, probably the best thing that happened to me. I really struggled in these matches. I was so tense in my body that I couldn't let my strokes flow. And for performance, you need to be relaxed and let things flow. So I couldn't hit a backhand over the net. And fine in practice. One of my coaches then, she had a great calming influence on me. And she just said, Yvonne, you just need to learn how to relax. And I was like, how do I do that? And she, I think she probably pointed me in the direction of just taking some quiet time to myself, And what I did then was I started meditating. I went home that evening, I remember, in my apartment, and I said to my roommate, I'm just going into the bathroom and I'm just going to be there for a little while. I'm just going to try and do some meditation, and here was me. I had a candle. I don't know where I got the ideas from. Maybe I'd read it, maybe I'd seen it somewhere, but I lit a candle and I just sat on the floor staring at the candle for it ended up being about 20 minutes. And I was like, oh, I really liked that. I got this sense of calm from just being in a quiet space, looking at the candle. And I did feel, just things started to slow down in my mind. So I continued with this practice. Now I now know, it was a type of meditation, but, I was just like, I'm just going to go light my candle, and I did it for every evening after that. I kept going. And within a week or two, I felt the difference on the tennis court. So I started to do this practice because I needed to help my tennis game because my head was a mess. And, I started to notice I wasn't as reactive on court. I started to notice, I had more control over my emotions. I was focusing better, thinking better, making better decisions. And my backhand came back. I wasn't, I was nice and relaxed through my body. So yeah, it was just such a shift for me. And then, Ciara, the added bonus of that was, from performance wise, I started going out and playing and beating people that, were ranked way higher. It wasn't a problem. I was going out and playing the number one in the national, college rankings. And I beat her, but it was no big deal. It was just like, I'm just doing my thing. So I found kind of for performance, I found a little tool that started to really work for me. So that was my big kind of transformation, I suppose. And then I continued on with it.
And it was what happened off the court that triggered this new behavior on court. But surely there was something that you were bringing with you. So yes, the meditation that you were doing every evening was calming your nervous system and, putting you more in control. So was it unconscious then on court, or were there conscious things that you were starting to do when you were actually on the court?
So I think, when you play, so the game of tennis, there are stops and starts. So when you're actually playing, you shouldn't really be thinking about technique, or you want to just let it flow when you're playing a match. Now, in practice sessions, you would be thinking about your technique, you're working on different stuff. But when it comes to performing, you want to just let it go, let it be, let whatever happens, happens. But then because tennis is, you play a point and then you have this little between point period. And this is what I teach players all the time. What you do in that period is so important. It's, this is your opportunity to reset if you need to. And when we talk about resetting, maybe what has happened in the point that you played. So maybe you made a silly mistake, or, and you're annoyed about it. Or maybe you're starting to feel, you're thinking about the score and you're going, oh, you start to feel nervous. I'm 5-3 up. Now I need to close this out, or, I should be closing this out. And then you start to tighten up. So, the between point period is a great opportunity. It gives you a chance to reset constantly. And that's what tennis is. You play your points and then reset if you have to in the in between point period. So the stuff that you do in between points is definitely conscious. Are you doing a little routine? I teach players sometimes, giving them something that they can control in between points. So is it that you look at your strings? Is it that you take your attention then to your breath? slow your breath down, bringing you back to like a calmer state. Because we need our mind to, or we need ourselves, the whole body to be nice and calm so that we can think clearly. Because, when we go out to play the next point, we want to be, have clarity of mind so we can make good decisions and that kind of thing. So yeah, just, it's a bit of both.
Yeah. So take the scenario then that you're doing your meditation and you got on the court and you're nice and loose and you're playing well, and then you hit one backhand in the net and then you hit another one and another one. And I'm sure there were occasions after you got over that blip with your backhand that you missed a couple of backhands.
Mm-hmm.
So is that sufficient to do those little resets? Or, when the emotion starts to build up as well, is there anything else you're saying to yourself so that you don't get stuck in that loop of, oh, here, I've fucked up again?
Yes. Yeah, well, so I would be saying, okay, the breath for calming, then self-talk is so important as well. How we speak to ourselves in life as well. But, when you're a sports person, what you say to yourself can have a huge influence on how you feel, how you feel about your game, how you feel about your performance. And I have this little exercise I do with people, and you could do this for life as well. When things go wrong, what are the common kind of negative things that you might say to yourself? So I call this exercise bad coach, good coach. So, and I'll explain why. So bad coach is, so say for just an example, I'm on the tennis court and I hit a backhand into the net and I go, oh, typical. You've missed your backhand. You're so rubbish. You're so bad. There could be a few expletives in there, but we won't say them. And then I say to players, okay, so that's your bad little comment that you would say to yourself, and imagine there was a coach just at the side of the court saying that to you. Oh, look at you again. Off you go, hitting your backhand. You're so rubbish. You'd definitely want to, we can see it going, oh my God, I definitely want to get rid of him or her. I'd want to fire them. So then we want to bring it to, what would a good coach say? What kind of coach do you want in your corner? So you want somebody who's supportive. You want somebody who's encouraging and positive. So then what we do with the previous comment, we have to change it. We have to change it into something you'd imagine the good coach would say. So don't worry. Maybe you give yourself something technical to think about and maybe hit up on the ball more or brush up or let's go next point, So just kind of giving you something, maybe something technical to kind of shadow in your mind and then just let's go. Come on. You can do this, giving yourself some sort of encouragement. So when players do this exercise, so sometimes I'd have people who are like, oh, I'm so negative with myself on the court. And I would give them this exercise to do. And they'd go off and try it then. They play a few matches and they said, oh, it really worked because I had written it down. So I'd taken the time to reflect, kind of think about it. And then because I had written down a positive response, I had something just there in my mind. Oh, I can catch myself with the negative words and then change it into something positive. And that's just like a little shift that can work so well. And you can do that for life as well. If there's situations that you find, oh, I'm always getting, this is getting me, getting on top of me. And then you go into a negative spiral. And if you could just write down, what are those things that you say when you're in the negative spiral and then say, what could I write down or what could I say that would be helpful and would get me out of that loop? And I'm a big kind of write it down person, I think for me anyway, and for a lot of people I work with, it sticks better. It sticks better in the mind, So,
And
yeah.
this matches exactly with what I would do with my clients in terms of, obviously there's the goal setting, there's the visualization of the outcome that you do want. And that can be just even when it's coming to a meeting at work. So rather than going in feeling, oh no, I'm stressed or I'm worried about the outcome, it's okay. What would be an ideal outcome? What would make this a perfect result? So first of all, it's that visualization, goal setting, and setting the intention for what you want. And then the self-talk, obviously, keeping your self-talk clean with your good coach. And then when things don't go your way, bringing back to the breath, and even noticing that at work, or wherever you are, it's that when you feel that stress response, to calm, bring in the breath. So yeah, in life on the tennis court, it seems to be pretty much a similar strategy that's going to help us through to the other side.
Yeah.
So go ahead,
So,
Yvonne.
no, I was just going to say that, you know, when we find ourselves in those situations where we're feeling stressed, either on court or in life or in work, that it really helps if you're very good at checking in with yourself. Like, if it really helps if you're aware. So this is why I would teach mindfulness to people as well, because I think the more you practice mindfulness, the better you are at checking in. And I say to people, if first of all, if you're not aware that you're getting stressed, because we can go like, in certainly on the tennis court, you can have like games and games go by and you're all tight and you're just not enjoying it and it's not going well and you're thinking too fast, your heart rate is up and your body is tense, you're not breathing properly. But once you are aware, like you check in with your body, check in with actually, I have a little, acronym for resetting that I use sometimes when I do, talking about resetting. And I'll share it here, Ciara, because it can work for life as well. So the first one, or, is recognize, how, so I say with the tennis, recognize that you've come out of your focus bubble. So the focus bubble is kind of like the nice, calm, focused, present state that you're in when you're playing. So the first thing, recognize that you've come out of it. So it just feels a bit icky, maybe in life it just feels, I just feel, I'm snapping at people. I'm, just feeling under pressure, feeling overwhelmed. Then the next one, the E, is recognize, examine your breath and your body, so you just check in with yourself, check in with how you're breathing. Check in with your body. How, like, are your shoulders up around your ears? Is your, like, face all scrunched up? Are you all tense, basically? And then, if you discover, which you most probably will, that breathing is not full and flowing freely, and then your body is all tense, then the next stage, so reset, or ES. S is slow down the breath and soften the muscles. So the first one I always point people towards is slowing down your breath, because I think, that whole practice of even, making the breath longer, the inhale and the exhale. But I also teach, make your exhale longer, slow it down, make it longer than your inhale. I know you've talked about this before on your show, like, it kickstarts the relaxation response. So, one breath like that can make a huge difference. Sometimes all it is one breath is all it needs, So the slowing down of the breath can start to relax, and then maybe consciously softening the muscles if you need to, And then E, the next E, so RESE, is enter back into your focus bubble. So sometimes I say to people, use this as a visualization, just imagining you're walking back into the calm, focused, present state. And then the T is, okay, think about what are you to do next. So think about the next point. Think about in life, think about, okay, what can I control right now? What can I do in this moment? And that's my little kind of acronym for resetting that I do. Like I do a little workshop called the reset process. And that's what I take tennis players through. But as you know, it can work for life as well.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
it's recognizing what's gone wrong, then examining where that stress might be or how the body is feeling, how the mind is feeling, slowing down with the breath. And I think that's great as well with the breath as well, consciously softening the muscles or bringing the body
Yeah.
back. And then the entering back in, I'm definitely going to use that one. So visualizing this focus bubble where the
Yeah.
environment is perfect,
Mm-hmm.
and stepping back in so that, yeah, you're now probably cognitively clearer to make a decision. What am I doing? Am I hitting cross court, or what am I doing in my meeting, or whatever the next
Yeah,
thing is?
exactly.
But also, I think one of the biggest lessons, and there are many, but one of the biggest lessons we can take from tennis is also that we can't control the opponent. So, no matter what's going on in life, really the only thing we have control over is our own responses, is our own decision to prepare, or all of those things that we can do. So we need to take responsibility for that rather than focusing across the net. But there's probably times where that's really difficult. And I know that in life, we blame the other person. So, an opponent on the tennis court who's really annoying and has annoying behaviors. Is there any other advice that you have to deal with those opponents, those people in our lives that do trigger us?
Yeah, so that's a big part of of sport as well as life, controllables and uncontrollables. We have the things, say for tennis, the opponent, we could be playing a very irritating opponent. In life, we could be having to deal with somebody who's very irritating or, rude. Or I think it's good as players and as people to be very, to recognize what it is. What are the uncontrollables? Sometimes just doing a big circle and writing down, okay, at the moment, the things that are bothering me, and writing them in the circle and just going, okay, these are all uncontrollables. So for the tennis court, we talk about the conditions, like it's really windy, or the sun is in my eyes, or irritating opponent, getting a bad call, and life, we get things happen that are very unfair sometimes, in work situations. Even I talked about this in the workshop, that the doubles workshop, just you can't control your partner. You might be in a work situation where you have somebody on your team, and you can't at the end of the day control what somebody says, what somebody does. You can certainly try and influence things, like influence people in a positive way. But at the end of the day, the only thing you have control over really is yourself. So your attitude, your effort, how you speak to yourself, how you carry yourself, the kind of even just simple, like your posture, so on the tennis court, I would be saying to people, try to walk with a confident looking posture, because even if you're not feeling confident, maybe this will help with your confidence in time. But just these few things that we can control. And just have a good understanding of, and I know it is hard sometimes, because you can be caught up in something and going, I can't believe they're doing this, or I can't believe they said this. But then you have to kind of go, okay, what can control here? And you're probably better in a calmer state. So working on calming yourself down, if you have to deal with a situation, maybe that's the first step that you do, you work on yourself. But it's just kind of, I think, just remembering when we're faced with uncontrollables, it's controlling your reaction to them. And then just putting all your focus into what it is that you can control.
And it's back to then your preparation in terms of your daily rituals that are going to help you with that in the moment. So what are your daily rituals, Yvonne, and how do they differ now than when you were competing?
Well, so when I when I was competing, I suppose, when I was a professional tennis player, professional tennis players are quite selfish, I suppose. It's very much all about you and, trying to, and which is fine, that was your job. So you're not thinking about anybody else. Pretty much every decision you make is about your tennis. How is this going to help my performance? Days, my little rituals, I suppose the things that I do to help myself, try and be the best version of myself. I definitely have to look after my mental well-being. So there's a few things, well, physical and mental well-being. So physically, a bit of movement every day. I love to go walking. So I try and get out in nature. Nature is a big part of my, what I do to help me feel good. A walk in the forest is just, I've never come out of a walk in the forest without like feeling worse than when I went in, So there's definitely something healing about the trees. I love walking in forests. But just getting out, moving the body. I do try and do a daily practice of connecting in. So this might be a little, I sit for 20 minutes. It might be. I'd sit and, checking in, like I was talking about, like checking in with the body, noticing, oh, there I go. I have my shoulders are all tense, just relaxing down, and then a bit of breath work maybe. It varies actually, depending on what I feel I need. Have yoga nidra. Yoga nidra is, I love practice. I probably practice yoga nidra about three or four times a week actually. I really feel for me now. So for maybe some of your listeners might not be familiar with yoga nidra, but this is a lovely, it's a meditation really, but you do it lying down on your back in shavasana if possible. And it's really, it varies, but essentially there would be a little bit of breathing practice there. So, the slowing down of the breath, helping yourself settle into your position and calm the mind. And then there's a body scan, and then there might be visualizations. And it's a lovely practice to help you go into deep relaxation. Now, a lot of people would use this to help for sleep. It can be very helpful for sleep. And then others can use it, to go deeper in your meditation practice. So I love the yoga nidra. Then just sleep in itself, just trying to make sure I'm very precious about my sleep. I would take naps during the day if I have to, if I can as well, of course, if time allows. And then the other thing, Ciara, I just kind of just made a kind of a, a little pledge there, probably about a year ago now at this stage, but I don't drink coffee anymore. The caffeine I've discovered, like after years and years of loving this taste of coffee, loving the smell of coffee, but it made me like so jittery. And I just made the connection really there a little while, about a year ago.
Mm.
So I don't drink coffee. I drink decaf if I really want a coffee. But that's something, and that's life really, isn't it? Just trying to figure out all the different things that work for you. I do love the whole coffee experience, but it has to be decaf, unfortunately.
Have you tried mushroom coffee?
No, I haven't. I've heard about it, but yeah, do you drink that?
I do. I will send you some after this. So
Oh gosh, oh
I
lovely.
use London Nootropics. They have a great flow blend and a
Right.
Zen one
Yeah.
and Mojo. So depending on what exactly you're looking for. But yeah, I find that great because there is caffeine in it. But obviously, the blend of mushrooms, they give you a more stabilizing effect
Right.
rather
Okay,
than the
very good.
jitters, or you never have any of those side effects. So yeah, I'll send you some.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So, it sounds like what you do is very much aligned with what you feel you need at the time. At this stage of your life, you understand that these are part of being a healthy, mentally well human being. Movement, doing something for your relaxation, for your mind. And I also practice yoga nidra, and I find it, yeah, just getting out of your head, because that body scan just takes you immediately out of that mental crap that might be taking place during the day. So we could call that, in a sense, recovery. So these practices help us recover every day. And I think a lot of the time, or if I'm in businesses talking about high performance, the piece that's missing with a lot of people, the piece that leads to burnout, to stress, is not enough recovery. Or what I see is there isn't that facility to disconnect, to allow the body to recover. So at the end of the day, we've had a stressful day. And then naturally, that should be our recovery zone. Yeah. Our time where we rest, where we do something nice, where we meet our friends, and then we go to sleep. But for a lot of people, that kind of phase is still linked to worrying. So their mind is still in that stress place. So there's that reset. And I think you talk about a lot, writing things down, I think can help. So what I would advise people in work is that, do your daily review or do some kind of disconnection piece so that you have all your tasks captured before you go home into recovery. In terms of recovery then, if we look at it in a sporting context, talk to me about how that works in, let's say even we've recently had Wimbledon and we have the players, you see the players play a 3-set match for the women or a 5-setter for the men. And you see there is that day break. So what are they doing in order to get their body ready for another epic contest the next day?
So physically, I suppose, now things have moved on significantly, I suppose, since I was a professional tennis player. But definitely, you see, like I've seen it on Instagram, I've seen the players in the ice baths, just helping the muscles recover. And now it depends on what level you're at. If you have the resources to have your team, you'll have your physio, you might have like a physio / masseuse, definitely getting rub downs, massages is part of it for sure. And then there'd be, it depends on the player. I know Djokovic would be doing some yoga moves, yoga stretches, yoga asanas. And they have that day off in between, in between the matches. A lot of players, it depends on what stage of the tournament is at. It seems like they would come out and just get a little hit, forehands, backhands, move through all the strokes, but nothing too taxing that's going to tire them out. And then, I'd say, if they have it down, they would be very good at switching off then. I'd imagine, for the mind, the ones that do it really well are probably not on social media, for those 2 weeks. Maybe they're just not looking at the newspapers. You know how awful and the pressure that the newspapers can put on the players. Then, I'd say they find what it is that works for them. Maybe they read a book that's completely unrelated to tennis. Maybe they go watch a movie. And actually, Ciara, I meant to say, for my daily rituals, I think it wouldn't be a daily thing, but I think connecting to people, maybe this is what the tennis players do as well, but just chatting with friends, just calling somebody up or going for a walk with somebody and having a chat, that can do wonders for you. Because I know myself, just going back to me, when things start to get on top of me or I'm feeling, I'm worried about something, I just let it go around and round in my head. I'm getting better at, not doing that now, but getting out for a walk and a chat with a friend can just do wonders for that, because you might talk about your problem that you have or your issue, but you talk about other stuff as well. And then you kind of start to realize, there's life outside of this. It just gives you a little bit of headspace. It gives you a little bit of break in your mind. So, yeah.
Or then recreational tennis players or sports people who are competing, maybe for fun. What out of that is the most important? Let's say we don't have physios at hand or we don't have the ice bath next to us.
Yeah.
What's the most important in terms of recovery?
I think, from the physical side of things, I would definitely always recommend, some stretching after you play, just so that you're not, sore the next day, so sore the next day. So doing a cool down. But I know for a lot of club players, they like to just go. Sometimes they don't even warm up and they go out and they play and then they leave. That's their little tennis game done, and that's fine. For somebody who's a little bit more, wants to spend a bit more time on their tennis and kind of get the best out of themselves. So from the physical side, make sure you do your warm up, make sure you do your cool down, your stretching afterwards. But then, say for, any level, if you're going out and playing a match and you have finish your match. Maybe you've won, maybe you've lost. I always encourage people to do a post-match analysis, and it could be, it doesn't matter what class and league that you're playing. I think we can all learn something from our matches. And definitely, I really feel we learn more from the matches that we lose than the matches we win, there's a lot more there for us to kind of or information, I think, from the lost matches. So the way I structure it, I say to somebody, so you ask yourself, and again, write it down if you can, and whether you're a singles or doubles. So in the doubles, you could do this with your partner, but just ask yourselves what went well, what did we do well in the match? And now sometimes you might have lost a match 6-love, which means you didn't win a game at all. And you'd be like, well, nothing went well. But maybe you can grasp onto, oh, well, actually, we kept trying, So that's something that went well. That's something that you did that was positive. The second thing then, what didn't go so well? So maybe you have a big long list. Maybe it's just one or two things, and then you can kind of go, oh, why didn't that go well? Oh, I haven't been practicing that, or I was tightening up on that shot, or, and then you kind of say, well, if I was doing the match differently, if I was playing the match again, what would I do differently? And then you have your last little piece is, okay, well, moving forward, what are the few things I'm going to do? Maybe give yourself 2 or 3 tasks to work on to help with just, getting something out of the match. I know that when we lose a match, maybe sometimes it's a really disappointing loss. Maybe you've been very close, you were very close, and this happens in life as well, in work situations. Maybe just you're so close to something and then it just doesn't happen for you. But that's I think sometimes we can be very emotional about it. So I say to players, let your emotions settle before you do your analysis. And then, you come back kind of with a little clearer mind and you're able to kind of get something out of your analysis and move forward, try to grow from your losses rather than like beat yourself up about it.
But that kind of practice as well can help your confidence, because obviously as human beings, if we don't think about it consciously, we're going to focus on all the things we messed up on, all the things we shouldn't have done that would have maybe won us the match. So when we take the time to say, well, what did go well? Then we start to notice more that actually, well, I'm actually hitting that well, or I'm speaking up well, or whatever it is. So as a confidence building exercise, it's very valuable. Are there any other ways in which you can build your confidence that has helped you with your game or with your life?
Yeah. So I think, first of all, understanding, I fell into the trap really, definitely, during a period of my professional playing days, so when I'm out on tour playing all the tournaments and trying to get my ranking up. And I did fall into the trap of placing, my self-worth on my results, or like, measuring my self-worth on how I did. So I'd go and play a tournament, and if I lost, I'd be boom down in the dumps and really just like, you're useless, and I don't feel confident, and start getting stressed about the next tournament that I have to play. But if I won, I was on top of the world, And I think a lot of sports people and then people in general fall into this trap. And the thing to remember really is that the outcome isn't in your control. When we play tennis, when we play sport, a lot of the time in life and in work as well, the outcome isn't in our control because there's so many other factors involved. So then it comes back to, okay, so that's an uncontrollable, coming back to what it is that you can control. So, I remember I was saying, like, focusing on yourself and what you can do. So for confidence building, I think really what can help you, because, you want to, sometimes people say, oh, you get confidence from winning, and sure enough, you might have an increase in your self-belief. But does that mean that when you start out that you shouldn't feel confident? And I would be like, no, of course not. You should feel confident if you've done good quality preparation. So you've prepared yourself for tennis now. Physically, you've done all the work that you should be. The practices on court, the practices off court, and then the mental side. Have you been doing your little mental game training? And if you have put in that quality preparation, fantastic. That's going to give you a sense of confidence. And then coming back to the self-talk, how you speak to yourself, not only on the court or not only in work, but outside of it, when you're at home, that you're speaking, support, like the way you talk to yourself is
Mm,
supportive to yourself and to, you know, uh, kind of bringing you towards, helping you come to be the best version of yourself, kind of feeling good in the mind. Then, of course, the posture thing, walking with confidence, how you carry yourself, on court, I say to players, shoulders back, chest open, and walk with the sense of purpose. And then there's just two other things I generally, talk about with players. So there's this little practice I call the confidence bank. And it could be like so it's a little journaling practice, coming back to the journal again. But so where you write down, maybe at the end of the day, you write down 3 little wins, like little achievements that you had during your day. So for a tennis player, say a junior tennis player, and they went training and they could write down, I ran for every single ball in practice today. I didn't make every ball, but I ran for, I tried 100%. Or, in the work day, I went and I spoke up in the meeting today, when I was kind of unsure of speaking, but, I made myself speak up and I got my point across. So just writing down 3 little they're almost like little deposits into your confidence bank. And you do that for a period of time, a few weeks maybe. And then it all builds up. And now, and then you read over it and you go, wow, look what I've done. And that, it's just kind of instilling, confidence, inner confidence. And then the last thing I would be kind of saying is, even if you're not feeling confident, to try to use visualization to help you with that. So see yourself standing in front of people with your good posture and the words flowing, and you're making eye contact. If you're doing a talk, you're
yeah,
making eye contact with people, or on the tennis court, seeing yourself compete the way you know how. And yeah, so
brilliant.
that's,
Yeah. And I remember that from your workshop, which really reminded me again, you can't control the outcome. You can control your mind, you can control your body to an extent, and you can control the effort you're putting in, the preparation. But, and actually, I came home last night from a tennis game, and my husband was barbecuing, turned around, he said, "You won." And I said, "No, I didn't, but I played really well."
There you go. Very
And
good.
that wouldn't have been me, a couple of years ago, let's say, where it was all about winning or losing and feeling too competitive about it. But that's what I could control as much as possible. I was playing well. But the fact that I lost was not a bother anymore now. That's
Yeah.
not to say when the matches come up that it'll be the same, but at least we can do it in a practice game.
Yeah.
No, that's fantastic, Yvonne. This advice, I know I've taken loads from it, and I'm sure my listeners will too. It's invaluable advice about how we can take control of our thoughts and put that effort in, that will help us in whatever sport you play, or in your work and life overall. So we will put all your details below, details of your workshops for tennis clubs. Anyone listening who's in a tennis club, definitely get Yvonne in. And Yvonne has yoga lessons for tennis players. She's a meditation teacher, a yoga teacher, and an an all around brilliant human being. So
Oh. Oh, thank you, Ciara. Oh no, thanks so much. I've really enjoyed the chat. It's good to talk about all this stuff. It's stuff that I do now and nowadays. I wasn't really aware that my life and my work life would go this direction, but it's just kind of flowed that way. And, when you find something that you do that you really love, love sharing, love helping people with this side of tennis. So, yeah. So thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, thank you for helping me and helping everyone else. Take care.
Thanks a million.
Thanks for listening in. I really hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. Can't wait to get myself back on the tennis court to practice some of those techniques. And if you enjoyed the episode, please check out Yvonne's details below also. And once again, please hit the follow button to support the show and have a wonderful inner day. See you next week.